Thians and all the students and the audiences. So welcome to the Day 2's Architect Suite Input Lectures. So today our lecture input will be given by our Day 2 speaker, Architect Thian Ying from SA Architects, and also the alumni of UTM Architecture School. So she is also the pre-thesis 2 Urbanism Studios from semester 2, 2021 and 2022. So Architect Thian will be talking about the senior living for today's topic. So without further ado, let me invite Architect Thian to start your lecture. Thank you, Architect Thian.
Thank you, Dr. PC. I'm actually going to start my slides. I'm going to share them. Can you see my screen?
Yes, Architect Thian. So you can enlarge it or show it in the Yes. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
So today we are actually going to talk about senior living. I guess actually in this country, this topic is not really spoken about because our focus is actually more of other building types or other considerations. I actually chose this topic because I'm actually inspired by the COVID-19's impact on us, especially all of us, especially older adults, because when you actually look at how our government actually put importance of vaccination for them, it also comes to us that they are being recognized for their importance in our community. And I believe that design can actually play a very positive role in shaping the future. And I will actually like to share my thoughts with you today. So when I first started Googling what is senior living, these are the first 3 pages of Google results that I have. So it starts with ads with luxurious retirement living and life care. Second page is actually more of the Google results on where these care centers are. And my third page is more nursing homes, senior living facilities, and senior living care services. I think senior living is actually not only constrained to when we actually design a facility specific for them. It is actually to design as an overall as a design criteria in actually in our design. So the pandemic has actually made clear on the importance of human interaction, definitely. Where now we are actually sitting down here talking and having a lecture series online, and our virtual communications that has improved or used by many folds during pandemic. This pandemic has highlighted the importance of human interaction, social isolation, and also have serious side effects like depression, anxiety, and general loneliness. But thanks to virtual tools, we are actually now able to connect with our family members and, of course, improve the state of loneliness and depression at home. While social isolation can be measured, loneliness can be felt because it is an emotional state. And loneliness in older populations are associated to early mortality. So today, I actually would like to bring this upon us about social living because there is a need for the balance between social distancing for health and safety and also the social connectedness for mental health. Besides that, also, we actually look at the advancement of health nowadays, and it actually seems that living up to the age of 100 years old will become very common based on research that are actually being done in year 2021. And besides that, you can see there are actually researchers by the United Nations that we are able to, by 2015, there will be actually many times full of older populations as compared to our younger generation. So if people are to retire around the age of 65, as many will because of the advancement of health care, that will leave us to 40 years of life to actually design. Besides that, also, by 2050, 1 in 6 person in the world will be over 65. So therefore, it is important for us to connect people physically and virtually. As thanks to COVID-19, our digital engagement for the community is actually growing rapidly. Having said that, senior living today, for me, in my opinion, is important because it covers all aspects of building types and actually not only senior living facilities. So it is important to design not only for millennials, but also the design for all ages and embrace age and celebrate longevity. So how this actually translates into what kind of trends we are looking at for senior living. So I've identified three. First is age-inclusive design. Second is embracing technology. And third is promoting well-being for all. So I will start with the first, age-inclusive design. So what is age-inclusive design? Age-inclusive design is actually designed for all people. In other words, it is actually also called as universal design. Some in Singapore, they call it barrier-free accessibility. And it is actually the idea of standardizing design elements and amenities that benefit people later in stage, which is very sensible because you are designing now. They can be used for all ages and not only for senior living. So we see the chart here. It is actually a research that's actually done earlier, talking about the goals of inclusive design: body fit, comfort, awareness, understanding wellness, social integration, personalization, appropriateness. These are actually all our intangible criteria that we need to identify across all ages with the goal of eliminating ageism, meaning to say designing for all. So it incorporates design solutions that meet the needs for all people, for all identity, for all races, abilities, social status, culture, and considered many of these will actually intersect among all races and globally. So if you look at this is a chart spectrum of population from age 65 to age 80. Basically, at age 65, if we look at people around us, they are perfectly normal. So their lifestyle is actually normal. And their care only increases when it goes up in age and it scales up. So as they age, they increase care and decrease lifestyle. What I want to actually highlight here is actually because there's actually a whole lot of spectrum in between for designing from 65 up to 80. But the definition in our country is very limited. So at the age of 65, we have independent living. At the age of 70 plus, we have assisted living. And at the age of 75 to 80, then we have dependent living. So these three categories will define what kind of lifestyle or what kind of care they actually need. So if you look at the category for independent living and assisted living, for independent living, there's actually not much change from what we actually are designing now. They are elder-friendly features, but there's actually no clinical aid as what is actually required for age 75 to age 80. So assisted living is actually something in between. They are the facilities are there, but actually they are not prominent. So we need to understand this definition so that we can actually design probably independent living around us and not specifically an independent living as a product. So if you look, these are actually the design studies overseas. Barrier-free drop-off with deep overhang, pedestrian crossing with clear signage, sheltered walkway with gentle ramp. These are all universal design. These are actually not specifically for senior living. These features are actually common sense because we actually need them to produce good design. The issue with our country is our design considerations are always reduced to the checkbox item to meet accessibility code requirements. Therefore, we are actually only meeting codes, and we forget about all this, which is very, very necessary. Therefore, in actually considering for senior living, we should not accept the minimum. More precedent studies on the reception lobby. If you look at them, they're actually perfectly normal, as in how we actually design for them. But of course, there are detailed touches to how the furnitures are being placed, the widening of the corridor, seating in front of the reception area. So these are the small details that we actually pay attention to. Okay. Precedent studies of actually the lifts. We actually put chairs. We have got wider corridors. We have got well-lit corridors, and sometimes we've got chairs inside the lift chairs for seating inside the lift. So these are all the gentle touches that not only for senior living, I believe, for all actually, because it's your sensitivity of designing. More spaces, lounge areas. You look at the spacing between the seating, it is actually generous and allows people to walk. So in universal design, what is actually stressed, one of the criteria that are actually being stressed is design for flexibility. When you actually look at the living room, it is perfectly normal as what we actually normally design. But some of the touches, the details that the designers think about, recessed areas can be partitioned in a small area. And these over time, as they age in place, they are able to customize them. So you're designed initially for flexibility for future customization to have their needs. Again, this is actually the living and dining. You look at the consideration of the counters and appliances where they are positioned at lower heights so that the elderly do not need to bend down to use them. Similarly, toilets. Now, especially in hotel designs, and some of the developers are actually looking at them, there are no level changes in the cubicle design, and cubicle shower is large enough so that toilet grab bars can be added as required as the elderly ages. So these are the things we should keep in consideration as a designer when we actually start designing, and not designing to the minimum, because all these extra spaces will be very useful, as we age, and we have to think about the future, and not only to think about when we need to submit for authority. So the second thing I will actually want to talk about is actually embracing technology. It is actually evident during the pandemic then that we actually use a lot of technology to actually keep us close, to make life convenient. It works for us and it works for older generations as well, especially when the old folks are actually far from the family and they miss their grandchildren. And not even that, even as family members that we actually want to keep close. So technology indirectly has enabled us to shift the narrative of older adults being a burden to being a asset to a community as a whole. As you can see, how the nature of innovation in the aging industry has been changing. Previously, the older generation has been termed, they are actually considered as old age. They are a separated population and they push away technology. But because of COVID-19, there's a paradigm shift and it's becoming longevity, integrated and inclusive. And of course, they are actually driving the market demands now to meet their needs for new and meaningful innovation because they believe they need to connect. And how does innovation actually look like, and how are they empowering greater independence? I mean, all this technology are actually around us and it's applied universally. So the virtual communications tool, like what we are actually having now, online lectures, it's working out for us and it works for them too. FaceTime, Facebook, Zoom, they're actually helping families and friends to actually stay connected while combating isolation and loneliness. And the convenience of groceries and food deliveries and ride shares provide greater mobility and engagement opportunities for both individuals and institutions. Besides that, new technologies are also assisting us to live longer by helping us to be more aware of our health. Wearables on the risk actually can collect a large amount of data that allow us to actually monitor our health closely. And not forgetting robotic assistance and medical management has also been introduced in our hospitals and our home care. So these are embracing technology to bridge the gap between us and our older generation. So the third trend is actually promoting well-being for all. And when we talk about well-being, most of us will think about retirement. So what is actually the best place to retire in Malaysia? So according to Google, it is actually Penang, and then it comes down to KL, and then it comes down to KK. And my personal favorite is actually Taipei. That you have a very, very big lake that allows you to actually, it is actually the center focus of the city. That allows you to walk and you do not actually need to take a ride. But these places has got something in common. If you think of actually, this is actually the best place to retire. It needs you to actually uproot from wherever you are before you can actually go to these places. But what do actually people want is to actually age in place because they want to be near to their family. They do not want to change their lifestyle while actually embracing retirement age. So in New York Times last year, there is initially an article on intergenerational housing. And they pointed out that development that goes all the way to mix older and younger people are increasingly regarded as healthier physically and psychologically. I think this is actually very true. And there are actually we are actually doing a lot of integrated development. But maybe we actually have not put intergenerational products as much thought as we should. Units up now are actually still designed to meet minimum codes, and our barrier-free code are actually not adhere 100%. But post-pandemic, you see, what we have here after we lifted the lockdown in June, we have got problems with traffic because people are scared to actually use public transport, and they are actually have concerns about density. So actually this drives the shift towards a trend of a 20-minute neighborhood. So this chart is actually sourced from Melbourne, Victoria Planning Authority, which is in the plan for 2017 to 2050. So what you actually see here, it covers all aspects of a neighborhood, from economy, from services, public realm, infrastructure, viable densities, self-accessible and well-connected, and connecting people. So it covers all the aspects of what you actually need. Basically, this is the idea of this 20-minute neighborhood is that you are able to walk, or you take a bicycle or stroll and reach any part of your facilities within 20 minutes, so that your daily life experience combines the needs of daily life while close to fun. And when traveling time is safe, more time is actually being created. It's actually very true for all of us, not only for senior living, that we want to save time so that we have more time. So again, when we actually Google what are the desirable places to actually live, of course, one of the more famous one is actually Desa Park City. It is established as 1999, 475 acres. If you go and see the place, it looks very, very beautiful. And currently it is actually developing rapidly because of its demand. And it has a lake, which is actually from a previous quarry mine. So no doubt, this is actually one of the pioneers of a very livable community. And people actually like it there because it's desirable. So this is actually at 473 acres. Desirable, maybe it actually meets the 20 minutes neighborhood criteria. But I believe when in 1999, there are not that many researchers actually done on these new neighborhood definitions. But when we look at a larger precedent studies, Bandar Sunway is actually 800 acres. And it is actually the first fully integrated township that is recognized by GBI. So it consists of actually two lakes, the Sunway Lagoon Theme Park and also the Sunway Subkey. And you'll be wondering, can you actually really walk 20 minutes and get to anywhere within Bandar Sunway? And the offerings Bandar Sunway has commercial, theme park, hotel, medical, university, and it's pretty much everything there is for a township for 800 acres. So we actually look at the zoning of this place, whether it is actually walkable actually. So where Sunway Theme Park is actually the more mature zone of Bandar Sunway, where there's the university, the commercial, the hotels, and the hospitals that's actually fringing there. And then down there you have the South Key Lake. And then the two zones are actually divided by a BRT station. So accessibility is fine here. And then at the lower zone, you have residential, universities, schools, student residences, and a big piece of land that's actually under development now, which is actually integrated development. So with the BRT stations, probably it is still not sufficient to be defined as a 20-minute neighborhood. So we talk about walkability. You see actually all these linkages that they have done, the elevator walkways and the ground walkways that they have actually added to actually make it really, really accessible. So while accessibility is concerned, there are BRTs, there are plenty of pedestrian walkways, elevated, and there is actually also, of course, the vehicular accessibility, which actually makes it closer to their goal of being a walkable city. So the piece of land here that's actually hashed this entire piece now is probably the last lot of development, and they are actually thinking carefully what they actually want to put on top. And to recap, there's actually the hospital here, student housing, and also the school over this side, which creates a new paradigm because college campuses are likely to stretch as the new intergenerational paradigm even further. Because university, there is actually this demand for university-based retirement communities, which merge several types of housing for older adults with access to medical centers, transportation, fitness centers, libraries, entertainment centers, and other amenities that energize the campus life. So if you actually look at the mix of people demographic here, it actually fits into what New York Times definition of intergenerational housing, or more of development. And it also makes sense that a university is actually placed so that they allow the community to of all ages to actually enroll in the courses, and also to allow mentorship opportunity with the younger students for the older population. So at the hash area, this is roughly the actual cross section of how it looks like. So you see the interconnectedness of the office towers, the retail, and the university, and how they actually blend the population mix, and also capitalizing on the strategic location opposite the medical center. So with all parking and pedestrian connections all thought well. So this might be one of the initiatives that Sunway Group has actually taken to get closer to senior living or universal design. And of course, lastly, this case study, my last case study, is talking about promoting well-being for all. We know that health, wellness, and experiences might be the center of our design decisions. And this, of course, have to include climate action. As you know, we have a lot of rain, we have a lot of sun, and our climate is very humid. And now there's actually a lot of people talking about sustainability. And recently, the trend of biophilia. Biophilia is actually a very wide term, which needs definitions and not to be used uh, widely without actually understanding. But here, we'll actually talk about how a development actually is able to take climate action into as a criteria, so that we can actually achieve microclimate control. So there are 4 things here: thermal comfort, air quality, noise absorption, and biophilia. So these are terms that actually can be turned into design strategies as we design a building. So over here, I think closest to us, Kampong Admiralty in Singapore. This is actually on a 2.2 acres piece of land. It is conceptualized as an all-in-one village with combined housing, healthcare, and care facilities, and shops with greenery, abide to be a modern kampong. So I guess this has actually won many awards, and this is probably one of the earliest developments in Singapore that actually takes senior living another level up. So as you see outside, it's actually a concrete building, but when you actually reach inside, it is actually laced with lush greenery. So their motto is urban living, kampung spirit. And these actually allow people to age in place because it's actually right in the middle of the city. But it gives you the environment of being in the suburbs. And and looking at the density and the amount of people and the and what they and the interrelationship between the buildings, they actually cleverly designed this integrated development into 3 zones. The ground floor, retail shops, community, and community plaza. The mid-tier, which is actually the hawker center with the medical center, and the top tier, which is the studio apartments, the roof garden, the function hall, and elderly care facilities and childcare. And this mix actually allows normal people to actually use the retail at the bottom. And there's a big plaza for community events. And they have this elder care facilities and studio apartments at the top, which used for um, senior living. And this total package actually provides social and recreational activities to promote active aging. And looking at this, the terraces are actually open to public, so people can actually go up to enjoy. So we can actually conclude that this building actually allow multi-generational people to use, and there is actually an active community for elder care. And besides this, climate action being designed by WOHA, they actually pay a lot of attention to sustainability. So they designed it with these features called ABC waters. It's called Active, Beautiful, and Clean Water that features rain gardens and bio-wall street, surface water runoffs, and further green up the landscape terraces. So if I see, they actually use a large amount of green roofs for vegetation and also for filtration. and water cleansing. So over here, as an independent development, it has got its own climatic adaptation and water cleansing. And it allows gallons of tap water to be conserved each year as stormwater is run off and stored in the rainwater harvesting tank and reused for irrigation. And for the aesthetic part, and these climate strategies are actually manifested. You can actually see water trickling down from the rain curtain mesh during the storm as a reinterpretation of the tropical downpour experience. And the eco point promotes biodiversity and provides natural cooling effects for the adjacent urban surroundings. The Bioretention Basin is located at the medical center to provide a calm and therapeutic environment for patients, as also functioning as a system to harvest, cleanse, and recycle rainwater. So you see all these green features in place are actually located strategically, not only because they are ticking off the checkbox from the authority, but actually they are actually thought carefully to how they actually enrich the community here and contribute back to good design. So I think as designers and students that are graduating, I think these are very relevant. And I think I will actually end my lecture by opening to the floor for any questions. I think that's it, Dr. PC.
Okay, thank you very much, Architect Thian, for the insightful and interesting topics on the senior livings. Yeah, I do agree with this because the world populations due to the urbanizations, so we are getting nearer to the aging, the kinds of like the population is increasing. Like according to the World Bank estimates, right, Malaysia has become an aging society. Is around 7% of the total population, which is aged 65% and above in 2 years back, which is 2020. So perhaps in the through the estimations by 2044, we have around 14% of the population aged 65 and above. So yeah, nowadays we keep talking about sustainabilities. So most of the time we are just focusing on greeneries. Okay, it's about kinds of like the sustainables in terms of the gadget wise. But how's about the people by itself? This is some things that we might miss out. People might tend not to think. Probably they miss out. Not tend to think about that. So I think with this topic is a good injections or kind of like reminders for all the young architects, okay, in the futures. So each of the detailings that we have deal with will be very important because when we buy a house, so it's not just like for us to stay for like 5 to 10 years, probably will be for the whole life because everything is getting expensive now, including the housings itself. So it's very important to have these kinds of the awareness or the thinkings on or the kinds of like detailings when we want to deal with all the design, especially on the anthropometrics, materials and so forth. So I think yeah, this one is very important for the our students as well, especially for the PTC students who are dealing with the housings. Yeah, so maybe now we are just focusing on the specific group of people, but how about okay the sustainability of the living environment? So what if one day, okay, the parents or the just married couples, okay, within next 10 or 20 or 30 years, yeah, the agents come. So how about the housing? Is it allows us to do amendments or is it ready for us to yeah stay at homes comfortably and safety in the same times? So maybe now I open up the Q&A sessions to students and audiences. So any questions that from students? We have Architect Aslan here. Architect Aslan, morning. Thanks for joining.
Morning. Hi. Good lecture. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for all the architects panels for your sharing, because I think this is a very precious and important sharing knowledge for the students, because all of you have been involved very thoroughly in the projects, the real projects. You're giving them good insight for their studio design and the works as well. Okay, any questions from the ground? Especially for the British students? Probably you have something to ask about the senior livings, or you have some doubts, okay, have some questions regarding to the process of the projects, because architect Thian, I'm sure that she has been involving in the works, the senior livings work before, okay, that you are interested to know about.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, morning, Aisha.
I'm I just want to ask, because this is regarding some of my previous case study I done on the senior livings, mostly regarding the public's one rather than the private. The difference in from public, they tends to go to more low rise building rather than private, where the mobility of the senior citizen are mostly constrict on the lower part, or maybe first story or second story. So why is it we tend, when we go to private building that are cater for senior citizen, are more cater towards the more high rise, constrict size of a room and so on. And that's mostly what I'm trying to ask regarding that matters.
Okay, thank you, Aisha. Probably the architect Ken, if you're able to answer some Aisha questions, thanks.
Yes, of course. If given a choice, everyone would actually like to have large areas to run and plenty of landscape surrounding you. But one thing, our aging population is also because we are all mostly in the urban areas, and urban areas does have a constricted area, and people actually like, some people actually prefers to age in place now. So the higher density senior living models are actually meant for those who actually still want to be within the urban area while having the facilities of this elderly care in place. But of course, given a choice, of course you will actually want large areas outdoor, which means that you will actually need to uproot yourself. So it's actually a choice. Is actually a choice of where of you if you want to uproot to actually relocate to somewhere else, or you actually want to age in place. Because if you actually see precedents like Japan, is similarly the same thing. You have got plenty of beautiful suburban areas, but some people just prefers to actually be in the city because they have been living 60 years of their life there, and to uproot and relocate might not be something that is considerable for them. So with those type of people, we'll actually need to think of how to actually design for them in urban cities. Do I answer your question?
And yes, I understand that, because
Okay.
that's depend on preference
Right.
on certain living matters lah.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aisha. So do we still have other questions from students? Okay, architect Tian, maybe one question from me myself, because so far seems like the agings or kinds of the senior citizen livings concept still not that popular, or I mean in terms of marketing wise we seldom see this. Okay, what do you think about the viabilities of this concept in the markets, especially from the developer sides? Are they embracing or welcoming these kinds of the concept, or so far it's still not the time yet to promote it in Malaysia?
Senior living is actually not a product, it's a design parameter. So if we actually put senior living as a design parameter in our design, then it will be actually like just another design requirement, just like universal design and barrier-free design. It's actually to make us think more about how we use facilities as we age. Therefore, we'll actually give consideration of larger acoustic control, larger corridors, ramps. And in Singapore, this is a compliance. Is not. It is a requirement. It is actually not optional. But of course, here in Malaysia, we actually have not have that awareness yet. But some developers have already gotten there. Some of the more the developers that are concerned about community building, they are already considering all those things in place, especially when they are actually engaged in hospital or healthcare. They are particularly actually concerned about all these little details. And for the rest of the developers, I hope it will pick up soon. As these criteria do not actually only benefit the older generation, but also the younger generation, families with babies. They actually do use the ramps. They do use a lot of all these facilities. So it is actually common sense. I believe common sense that we actually forgot because we are so busy trying to actually get our plot ratio and efficiency. So as designers, it is our duty to actually remind them. We remind our clients that we are all aging, and certain things we actually need to spend we just need to spend the area for better design.
All right, thanks for the response. I think this is a very viable parameters that we have to take notes as and architects in this case. Because I think most of the design usually will tend to be like going for according to the trends. So people tend to forget about this. Like for example, a long time ago, universal design would be not one of the requirement, but yeah, according to the time, okay, so this becomes a requirements already, and it has to be like what architect Thian have mentioned, this is not a product, but it's more on the some things that you have to bear in mind and have to be considered in the design itself, other than just following blindly about what have been marketable nowadays in the markets. So this is I think this topic hopefully can give the awareness for the students, okay, especially when you are dealing with those about your concept, your designs. So when it comes to some things about the detailing, special studies, or maybe when you portray your plan itself, it can be carefully conducted, or it can be carefully designed according to not only just because of the requirements, but for the humanity, for the peoples by itself. Okay. So, all right. So, yeah, last chance. Any questions from the floor? No for PTC students? Okay. If there is no other questions, probably after this, yeah, please liaise with the architect panels respectively. You may resume your stable creeds from yesterday if still haven't complete yet. Okay. So with this, probably I end the sessions. But before that, shall we have a group photo first? So students, could you please switch on the camera? And Architect Thian, do you mind to unshare the screen? Yes, thank you. So students and lecturers, could you please switch on the camera so we can have a quick snapshot of the photos? Okay, I have also shared the attendance link at the chat box, so please fill it in. Okay, yesterday I only get 13 attendance, so hopefully all of you fill in the attendance for today. All right. Okay. Yeah. Students, please switch on cameras. Logesan, you have any questions? Because you raised up your hands. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, one more. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you very much, Architect Thian, all the lecturers and all the students. Okay, so with this, I have ends the sessions, day 2 of Architects Weeks. So thank you very much, Architect Thian, for your time and the interesting topic. Hopefully, students able to make use of this topic in the designs. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
All right.
you, Dr.
See
PC.
you. All right.